The text came in at 9:04 p.m. Short, cold, almost flippant. Girls' night. Don't wait up. I stood there in the kitchen doorway, phone in hand, staring at that sentence like it had weight, like it might crack the tile floor beneath me. And maybe it already had. Metaphorically, Vanessa and I weren't in the honeymoon phase anymore. Hadn't been for a while. But even stale marriages have rhythms. And this broke ours. The second I typed out my reply. I hope you in here having fun. I didn't expect a fight. I expected silence. But 10 minutes later, her headlights spilled across our driveway. Not even 10 minutes. That's how fast she showed up. She must have driven like her lie was chasing her. The front door opened with a quiet click, like she hoped I wouldn't be in the living room. But I was seated in the armchair by the fire, legs crossed. The room dark except for the flickering orange glow. I didn't look up, just sipped my bourbon and waited. Daniel, she said lightly. Too lightly, like my name was a joke she hadn't finished telling. I didn't know you'd be home this early. I turned to face her slowly, meeting her eyes with a calm that wasn't calm at all. Didn't know I'd be home, I said, voice low. You left without a word, and now you're lying about it. She laughed, a nervous flutter. Babe, I told you I'm with the girls tonight. We're doing a late dinner. I raised my phone, showing the text. Then why the panic? She blinked. Once, twice. I wasn't panicking. You were home in 10 minutes. Where were you? Bellevue, Mercer Island with him? Her face fell. She looked away toward the hallway, toward anything that wasn't me. There's no one else. Don't be dramatic. You're wearing lipstick you haven't touched in 2 months, I said flatly. Your hair's curled. Your perfume's the one I said reminded me of high school dances. But sure, girls' night. Vanessa exhaled through her nose like I was exhausting her. You're acting like a detective in a movie, Dan. Seriously, just say you're mad. I'm not mad, I said, standing now. I'm awake. There's a difference. That got her attention. She crossed her arms, shifting from nervous to annoyed. So what? Now you're suddenly suspicious of every move I make. No, I replied, stepping closer. Not suddenly. We stood there for a beat, facing each other like opponents waiting for the bell. I saw the hesitation in her eyes, the way her lips tightened. She wanted to argue, to spin something clever, but nothing came, so she changed tactics. I'm going to bed, she said, brushing past me. But as she did, I whispered, You don't love me anymore, do you? She stopped, one foot on the first stair, her hand gripping the rail a little too tightly. She didn't turn around, didn't deny it, just stood there letting the silence say everything. And that was worse than any confession. The sun didn't rise that morning. It clawed its way up like even the day knew what was coming. Vanessa was still asleep when I got dressed. She always was these days. Not in the peaceful, intimate way couples sleep in when life is good, but like two strangers politely pretending the other doesn't exist. Her back to me, her body curled into a fortress I hadn't been allowed near in months. I didn't wake her. Didn't need another performance. Downstairs, the house was dead quiet. The only sound came from the coffee maker sputtering to life. I stared out the window at the backyard, still dewy from last night's fog. Somewhere behind the trees, downtown Seattle was waking up, humming with ambition. And all I could think about was time. Not in the poetic sense. No, time is in contracts, deadlines, deals. Because that $10 million merger, it was weeks away. And my lawyer's voice from last month kept drilling into me with all the grace of a jackhammer. If you want to keep what's yours, get out before the ink dries. Any assets acquired after you're married are community property unless specifically protected. You've got one shot, Daniel. One shot. I poured the coffee, took a slow sip, and felt the burn all the way down. It helped. Not much, but enough. I'd built everything I had from the ground up. My name meant something in the city now. Contracts, real estate, development. Hell, my hands had literally signed the future skyline of South Lake Union. Vanessa had been there through the early struggle. Sure, she'd smiled at networking parties, worn the designer heels, charmed the VP's wives. But lately she'd become a stranger with perfect nails, hollow compliments, and a phone she guarded like a state secret. I didn't need a confession to know. A man knows. And now I had something more dangerous than suspicion. I had clarity. Clarity that came with a price tag. I sat on the couch, leather creaking beneath me, the morning sun casting long slits of light across the living room floor. Girls' night, don't wake up. That message played over and over in my mind like a ticking bomb. Not because she said it, but because she said it like I didn't matter. Like I'd become an obstacle to her fun. Well, she had no idea what it felt like to be methodically erased from your own marriage. But she'd learn. I reached into the drawer under the coffee table and pulled out a legal pad I hadn't touched in years. It was Vanessa's idea once. You should journal, Daniel. You keep too much inside. I'd laughed at her then. But now it felt strategic. If this went where I thought it might, a record would matter. Not for therapy, for court. I dated the top corner 7:12 a.m. Friday and began writing. Vanessa returned home at 9:15 p.m., said she was at a girls' night, wore lipstick she hasn't used in weeks, strong perfume, didn't make eye contact, lied 3 times in under 2 minutes. The pen scratched across the paper, cold, clean, factual. It didn't even feel personal anymore. And that scared me a little because the further I pulled away emotionally, the clearer I saw everything. The games, the silence, the manipulation. It had been happening for longer than I'd admitted to myself. But now I saw it. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. I closed the notebook, finished my coffee, and grabbed my jacket. Vanessa was still upstairs, probably dreaming in that big bed about someone who wasn't me. Fine. I had my own dreams now, and they came with lawyers. I parked in a private garage near 5th and Marion, the kind where the attendants wear tailored vests and don't ask questions. Downtown Seattle was alive with the buzz of commerce. Espresso cups clinking, briefcases swinging, people in tailored suits darting across crosswalks with purpose. It used to inspire me. Now it felt like camouflage. The perfect place to disappear into strategy. 10 floors up in a corner office with glass walls and a sweeping view of the Sound. I shook hands with the man who might end my marriage. Eli Marsh, 48, Harvard Law, wore shirts that cost more than some people's rent. But what I valued more than his credentials was his temperament. Cool, unshakable, lethal in court, but calm as a whisper in person. He motioned for me to sit as he pulled up my file. No small talk, no pleasantries, just facts. I'm assuming this is urgent, he said, fingers steepled, eyes sharp. It is, I replied. We need a clean break before the deal closes. He nodded once like a chess player understanding his opponent's opening move. Still set to finalize the acquisition by the end of the month. 18 days. Then we've got time, but not luxury. I leaned back in the chair, running a hand through my hair. I wanted ironclad Eli. No loopholes, no lingering hooks. I don't care if she walks away with the damn furniture, but not the future. He clicked his pen and started scribbling on a yellow pad. Then we don't ask for a fight. We hand her the terms. Non-negotiable pre-deal asset protection. Mutual release, no claim on post-acquisition earnings. You keep everything after the signature date. Simple, clear, enforceable. I exhaled. It was the first time I'd felt air move freely in my lungs in days. "She'll resist," I said. He didn't look up. "Let her. That's why I hired Eli." There was a moment of silence before he added, "Does she know what's coming?" I hesitated. "No, but she knows something's off." He finally glanced at me. "Then let's make it official before she thinks to play the sympathy card." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "She's not stupid, Eli. She plays soft, but she watches, calculates." "Then we outcalculate her," he said simply. "This isn't emotional anymore. It's structural." That word stuck with me as I left the office. Structural. He was right. Our marriage had become a collapsing building, and I had to make sure I walked away with the blueprints before the whole thing came down. Back in my car, I sat with the documents Eli had printed. Preliminary drafts, clean language, neat clauses. It was amazing how much pain could be reduced to paragraphs. All she had to do was sign. But we both knew she wouldn't. Not without a performance. Still, for the first time in weeks, I wasn't reacting. I was leading. And whether she realized it yet or not, Vanessa had already lost control. Vanessa made chicken piccata that night. She never cooks. The aroma hit me the moment I stepped inside. Lemon, capers, butter. It was surgical. A trap dressed in warm lighting and wine glasses. She wore a soft green dress I hadn't seen in over a year. Hair curled just slightly. Subtle makeup, casual elegance, curated to say, "I'm still your wife." She was already plating dinner when I walked in, smiling like we hadn't been drifting in silence for weeks. "Thought I'd surprise you," she said, voice light as steam from the skillet. "You've been working so hard." I watched her closely, every movement, every glance. She wasn't nervous, not yet. This was still her show, or so she thought. I slipped off my coat, hung it neatly by the door, and walked to the table. "Sat down, let her play hostess. You didn't have to go through the trouble," I said, tone deliberately even. She waved her hand, brushing it off. "It's nothing. Just wanted to bring a little life back into our evenings." She poured wine into both glasses, chilled white, her favorite. I didn't touch it. We ate in silence for a few minutes. She filled the void with small talk, stories from her office, a funny thing someone said at yoga, a TikTok video I just had to see. I listened, chewed slowly, nodded occasionally. Then, when her fork clinked against the plate and she looked up with a hopeful sparkle, I cleared my throat. I've decided to move forward with the divorce. Her face didn't register the words at first. Then her fork stopped midair. She blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" I kept my voice low, measured. "I've already met with my attorney. The papers are being finalized. You'll get them by Monday." She stared at me. The room shrank. Her smile fell off her face like wet paint sliding from a wall. You're joking," she whispered, her voice cracking. I shook my head. "No." The silence that followed was vacuum-sealed, heavy, thick with all the things I'd waited too long to say. Vanessa's lip trembled. Her eyes darted toward the hallway like someone might be listening or saving her. "Daniel?" she said, breathless. "Where's this coming from?" I leaned forward slightly. "Every lie, every time you came home late with excuses that didn't add up. Every glance at your phone like you were guarding a secret. You thought I wasn't watching, but I was." She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. "I don't need a confession," I continued. "This isn't a trial. It's a decision, and it's done." Her eyes filled instantly. "Wait, just wait," Don't do this. You're angry. That's what this is. You're angry because of one bad night. One bad night, I said with a faint laugh. You mean the night you told me not to wait up while you were with him? Her breath hitched. She looked down, then quickly back up. There is no him. There never was. Daniel, please. This is paranoia. No, I said calmly. This is clarity. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. Okay, fine. You want to throw away our marriage because you think something happened? Then go ahead. But you're wrong, and you're going to regret this. Her voice rose like a storm, but mine stayed still. I won't. She stared at me. Really stared like she was searching my face for any trace of the man who used to need her. But that man was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. Strange, right? You expect to feel rage or heartbreak when you drop the axe. But me, I just felt steady. She stormed out of the dining room without another word, but I didn't follow. I stayed at the table, ate the rest of the chicken, sipped my wine because power, once you reclaim it, tastes better than anything you lost. The next morning, she made breakfast. Not cereal, not toast. A full spread. Pancakes stacked in threes. Scrambled eggs with cheese folded just right. Bacon curled crisp on the edges, exactly how I liked it. She didn't say much, just hummed softly while she moved around the kitchen in satin pajamas that clung to intention. I sat at the island, sipping coffee, watching the theater unfold. She set a plate in front of me with a smile that reached nowhere near her eyes. There you go, babe. Babe. Hadn't heard that in months. I took a slow bite. Chewed, swallowed. You Googled how to cook this, didn't you? She blinked, then forced a laugh. I mean, maybe. So, what if I did? Thought it might be nice. I nodded. It is. She sat down across from me, resting her chin in her hand, trying to look casual. So, about last night, I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up a pen and slid my small black journal from the edge of the table. She glanced at it, confused. You're journaling now? She asked, trying to sound playful. Something like that, I said. I dated the page and began writing in front of her, voice flat as I recited the entry aloud while I scribbled. Vanessa prepared breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, bacon. Smiled repeatedly, pet name reintroduced. Obvious behavioral shift post-announcement. No mention of prior deception. Possible emotional play. Maintain distance. Her smile twitched. What? What is this, Daniel? Documentation? She sat back slowly, the warmth draining from her face. You're documenting me? I'm documenting patterns, I said, flipping the page. It helps keep things clear. She stood, arms crossed. That's insane. You sound like some FBI agent surveilling his wife. I raised an eyebrow. If the shoe fits. She turned away sharply, walking toward the living room like she might escape the air in the kitchen. But it followed her. Over the next few days, it continued. She'd greet me at the door with a kiss. I didn't return, run her fingers down my arm like she forgot how long it had been since real affection passed between us. She laughed more, loud, exaggerated bursts that echoed down the hall. Watch movies I used to love, asking me if I wanted to join. I didn't. Instead, I wrote. Each page of that journal became a ledger, not of feelings, but of moves, a record of the game. She didn't realize I had already won. She upped the stakes by Thursday, ordered dinner in from my favorite place, dimmed the lights, lit candles. I didn't sit at the table. I ate standing by the kitchen sink. She watched me in silence, her jaw tense. Then, without warning, she came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I froze for a moment. The oldest tried to surface. I felt it, the ghost of memory in her touch, but it passed. I pulled away gently, not cruelly, just enough to let her know the message was still the same. "You can stop," I said. Her voice cracked. "Stop what?" "The performance." She stepped back, wounded. "So what? I'm not allowed to try anymore. You've already decided I'm the villain, so I should just give up." "No," I said calmly, drawing my hands. "You're allowed to do whatever you want, except convince you." I turned to face her fully. "You never wanted to convince me, Vanessa. You wanted to win me back like a trophy you forgot you owned. But I'm not on a shelf anymore." She stared at me for a long time, trying to find her footing, but there was no solid ground left. Later that night, I sat alone in my office. Lights dimmed. The journal open on the desk beside me. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Her smile in Italy, her arm through mine in Napa, our first apartment with those awful yellow walls. And I didn't feel regret. I felt resolve because love isn't supposed to be a negotiation, and survival isn't supposed to look like romance. They arrived early Saturday afternoon. My parents, Douglas and Marlene Bennett, Oregon natives, retired, old school values, and quick to forgive, sometimes too quick. They brought a basket of pastries, a jar of homemade jam, and hearts full of hope that their son's marriage was still salvageable. Vanessa greeted them like she was auditioning for a Hallmark movie. "Doug, Marlene, you look amazing," she beamed, throwing her arms around them like they were her own blood. Come in, come in." I made fresh tea and there's a cobbler in the oven. I stood behind her, arms folded, watching the charade. My mother smiled so wide her cheeks quivered. "Oh, sweetheart, look at you glowing." Vanessa actually blushed. Must be the sugar. She giggled. I didn't speak, just stepped aside and let the fantasy walk through the door. For the next 3 hours, she was flawless. Tea in antique cups, napkins folded into swans. She even made dinner from scratch. Chicken marsala, garlic mashed potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts with balsamic glaze. I'd never seen her make anything besides overnight oats and excuses. At the dinner table, she laughed at my dad's corny stories, complimented my mother's sweater, and even brought up that fun little trip we all took to the coast 3 years ago. The one where she spent most of the weekend on her phone. But tonight, she painted the past with pastel colors. All smiles, no edges. I sat in silence through most of it, carving slow lines through my mashed potatoes, nodding where appropriate, sipping wine like it was an anesthetic. It was when my father clapped me on the back and said, "You two look stronger than ever." That I felt it, that quiet internal snap, stronger than ever. I almost laughed. Instead, I looked at Vanessa. She was watching me, not admiring, not loving, assessing. After dessert, apple cobbler, piping hot, my mother took my hand in the kitchen. "She's trying." "Honey," she whispered, "you can't throw everything away over a rough patch." I didn't answer. I just looked out the window where the backyard lights flickered against the fading sky. "She loves you," she added softly. "No, she loves not losing." Later, after they went to bed in the guest room, I found Vanessa in the living room, fluffing pillows and lighting a stupid vanilla candle like we lived in a catalog. That's it. She didn't look up when I spoke. "You really laid it on thick tonight." She turned, smile still faintly glowing. "They're your parents. I wanted it to be nice." "Since when do you care about nice?" She placed the last pillow with a perfect corner fold since I realized what I could lose. I walked to the mantel, ran my fingers along the cold edge of a family photo. Us at a vineyard back when I thought smiles couldn't be fake. "You're not trying to fix this," I said. You're trying to rewrite it. She moved closer, her voice dropping. You could at least meet me halfway. I faced her. No. I've walked this entire marriage toward you. I've bent. I've compromised. I've rationalized everything you've done. Halfway doesn't exist anymore. She stared at me, eyes glassy. So what? You're really going to tell them while they're here? Eventually, why? I gave her the only honest answer I had. Because they deserve to know who you really are. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just turned away and walked down the hall. But the way her back stiffened, that told me everything. The show was exhausting her, and she didn't even realize I was the only one holding the curtain open. Sunday brunch was her idea. I thought it'd be nice. Vanessa chirped, slicing grapefruit into perfect crescent. Just the four of us, something light. Maybe we could all reset. Reset. Like our marriage was an app glitch. She wore a pale blue dress, soft fabric flowing like forgiveness. Her makeup was light, but strategic natural glow, just a hint of mascara. Her eyes were tired, but she painted over that too. My parents sat across from us at the small patio table, sipping coffee and smiling at everything she said. The sunlight made everything look gentler than it was. That's when my father leaned in slightly and asked, "So, how are things really going?" I could feel Vanessa's body go still beside me, not tense. Ready? I opened my mouth to speak, but she beat me to it. Fast, chirpy, casual. "Oh, you know Daniel, always the overthinker," she said with a bright laugh. "He gets into moods sometimes. Thinks I'm cheating on him if I stay at Pilates too long." Marlene chuckled. Men and their imaginations. Doug grinned, but his eyes flicked to me, searching for a tell. I stayed still, silent. Vanessa pressed on, her tone syrupy. "He's been a little distant lately. I think the stress from work is getting to him. Big deal closing soon." She looked at me, placed her hand on mine gently like she was shielding me. "He even told me he wanted a divorce," she added with a soft laugh, like it was a joke we shared in bed. My mother blinked. "You said that, Daniel?" she asked, tilting her head. I didn't flinch, just looked at Vanessa. I did. Marlene frowned. Why? Before I could answer, Vanessa cut in again, voice sweet as frosting. "Oh, come on, he didn't mean it. He just gets in these moods, especially when he's under pressure. I've learned to ride the waves." She squeezed my hand slightly, like she was keeping me in check. My father's eyes narrowed. "Dan," he said quietly. "Is that true?" I slowly pulled my hand from Vanessa's grip and leaned forward. "No," I said. "It's not stress. It's not a mood. It's a decision. One I've made with clarity, and I haven't changed my mind." The air went still. Vanessa froze, her smile faltering for half a second before she recovered. "Oh, honey," she said with mock concern. "Now you're making them worry." "I think they should worry," I said calmly. "They should worry that their son's been living in a house where trust is currency and he's been robbed every day." My mother looked between us, suddenly less sure of the script. Vanessa stood up, laughing, but it was sharp this time, the edge barely hidden. "Okay, this is getting theatrical. Doug, Marlene, I promise everything's fine." "We're just going through a little enough," I said. She stopped mid-sentence. I looked at my parents. "We're getting a divorce. It's happening. This isn't a phase or a mood swing. I've already started the paperwork." My mother's lips parted, eyes soft with confusion. "Daniel." But my father said nothing. He just looked at me for a long, heavy second and gave a slow nod. Vanessa sat down hard, suddenly pale, her control slipping like water through fingers. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't confidence or calculation. I saw fear. The next morning, she made waffles. Waffles from scratch. With fresh berries, homemade whipped cream, and a picture of warm maple syrup. She sat down like it was a peace offering. I didn't touch them. Vanessa watched me from across the kitchen island, her fingers tapping nervously against her mug. I was thinking, she began, voice light but brittle. Maybe we should host something this weekend. You know, just a small gathering. Bring a little joy back into the house. I looked at her, said, nothing, just a party, she added quickly. Friends, family, something warm, uplifting. I set my coffee down carefully. You think a party will fix this? She shrugged. I think reminding people we're still us could help. That word hung between us like a ghost. Us. There hadn't been an us in months. Just two actors sharing a stage. I leaned forward slightly. You want to host a performance? She blinked. That's not what but that's exactly what it is. You want to control the narrative again. She crossed her arms. You're twisting everything I say. No, I said, I'm finally hearing it clearly. She softened her tone. Daniel, people are starting to ask questions. Your parents are confused. The neighbors noticed you stopped wearing your ring. Good. Her jaw tightened. What happened to you? I stopped playing along. The silence that followed was deep. Honest. For a moment, I thought she'd explode or cry or beg, but instead she smiled. Not sweet, not warm, strategic. If we do host this party, she said slowly, you could tell people yourself, clear the air, show them who's really walking away. And there it was, the trap inside the offer. She wasn't throwing a party. She was baiting a stage. I'll think about it, I said casually, but only if we agree on one thing. What's that? There'll be a contract at the party. Her face twitched. Excuse me. A marriage contract. Simple. Transparent terms both of us signed to protect the future. Yours and mine. Her eyes narrowed. You want me to sign something in front of people? If you love me, I said softly, you'll sign it. The words landed like a brick wrapped in silk. She didn't answer. Just turned back to the sink, washed a perfectly clean dish, and let the water run long after it was needed. I stood, grabbed my phone, and stepped into my office. My lawyer picked up on the second ring. She wants a party, I said. Eli chuckled. They always do. You ready to turn it into a chessboard? Have the contract drafted and notarized. I want it ready by Friday. He paused. Public signature. If she wants to perform, I'll give her a stage. Click. I ended the call and looked out the window. The skyline glittered like ambition. My ambition. She thought she'd planned the next move. But the board belonged to me now. Friday night. Our house looked like a wedding planner's fever dream. Up lighting along the hedges. White string lights overhead. Soft jazz from the live quartet tucked beneath a heated tent. Waitstaff and black vests passed trays of champagne and crab cakes to people who smelled of old money and newer divorces. Vanessa had orchestrated every detail. She wore ivory, not white, but close enough to spark a memory. And she was glowing. That particular kind of glow that comes from knowing you're about to steal the narrative back. She smiled at everyone like she'd just renewed her vows. Meanwhile, I stood quietly near the edge of the patio, nursing a soda and watching it all unfold. This wasn't a party. It was a stage, and she thought she was the only one with a script. Then came the signal, a soft clink of her glass. The quartet stopped, The murmurs faded. She stepped forward, delicate as always, into the center of the crowd. "If I could have your attention for just a moment," she said with a smile that could win elections. "I want to thank you all for coming. I know it's not often we throw these things anymore, but, well, sometimes life reminds you how precious togetherness is." Polite laughter. Her eyes drifted to mine, then back to the audience. "Daniel and I have faced some tension recently. Work stress, the usual disconnects that come with ambition and time. A pause just long enough for a hint of vulnerability. But love isn't about being perfect. It's about staying, about choosing someone again and again, even when it's hard." A soft hum of approval. Heads nodded. A woman near the fire dabbed her eye. She stepped off the raised brick ledge and walked toward me slowly, her heels clicking with conviction. "I choose you, Daniel," she said quietly. "Tonight, always." She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. Instead, I turned to the small table behind me, where a black leather folder sat waiting. Then I raised my voice just enough to carry. "And I choose honesty." I opened the folder and held it up. "A marriage contract. Fair, clear. If you love me and you're sincere, you'll sign it." The crowd stilled. No music, no movement, just the cool buzz of disbelief. Vanessa's smile faded like mist under heat. "You're not serious," she said. "I am," I replied calmly. "No lawyers, no traps, just boundaries. If this love you spoke of is real, then prove it." She let out a small, breathy laugh. "You want me to sign legal documents at a party? I want the performance to end." She stared at me, face stone still, then slowly turned toward the guests. "You see," she said loud now, "this is who he's become. Cold, calculating, obsessed with control." Whispers rippled through the group. "He's making a spectacle of our marriage," she went on, voice rising, "trying to trap me, humiliate me." I stepped forward, laying the pen gently on the folder. "I'm offering clarity," I said, "not control. You want to stand in front of our friends and declare your love, then sign something that protects us both." Her face twisted, the mask slipping fast. "This isn't love," she snapped. "This is a trap. You're manipulating everyone." I shrugged, then walked away. But don't expect me to play the villain just because I stopped pretending. She looked at the contract, then the pen, then the people, and she lost it. "No," she spat. "I'm not signing anything. This is your guilt, your paranoia, and now you want to turn me into some kind of monster because you're too broken to be loved." Gasps, movement. A wine glass clinked onto a plate. I held her gaze. "You just did that yourself." Then I turned slowly, deliberately, and walked back into the house. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. Behind me, the party died with the silence. By Monday morning, the air in the house had changed. No more stage breakfasts, no more accidental brushes of the hand. Just a brutal silence and the occasional slammed drawer. Vanessa didn't speak to me after the party. She spent Sunday holed up in the guest room, emerging only once to pour a glass of wine she didn't drink. Her face was pale, makeupless. Her hair, usually curled and meticulous, hung limp around her shoulders. But I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt confirmation. This wasn't the woman I married. Maybe she never had been. By Tuesday, the final documents were ready. Eli met me at the courthouse. Everything was in place. Division of assets, property rights, non-interference clauses. Clean, fair, unforgiving. She could still contest, Eli said, scanning the paperwork. But after what happened Friday, I doubt she'll want an audience again. I gave a nod. She won't. When we entered the courtroom, Vanessa was already seated at the far table with her attorney. Some young guy in an overpriced suit who looked like he still called his mom for advice. She looked up when I walked in. Our eyes met briefly. No anger, no tears, just fatigue. The judge called us forward. The tone was sterile, procedural. There was no need for testimony. Everything had been pre-negotiated. The terms were solid, unshakable. She got half the house, 1 car, a modest settlement from Pre. Merger accounts? That was it. No future claim, no stake in what was coming next. It was over in under 20 minutes. Outside the courtroom, she caught up to me in the hallway. "Daniel," she said, her voice small. "Please, can we just talk once? Just you and me?" I turned slowly, hands in my pockets. "About what?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know. Not the legal stuff. Just us. I miss you." I looked at her, not with bitterness, not with anger, just clarity. There's no us anymore, Vanessa. You killed at the moment you thought I wouldn't notice. She shook her head. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "I thought you thought I'd keep playing along," I said. "And maybe I would have a year ago, but I know who I am now." She stepped closer, voice breaking. "We were good once. We were convenient once," I corrected. "But that's not the same." The hallway felt colder than it was. She blinked quickly, trying to hold herself together. "I still love you," she whispered. I gave a small, sad smile. "No, Vanessa, you love winning." She didn't follow me after that. She just stood there in that silent corridor of polished floors and echoing footsteps, clutching her designer bag like it could hold her together. When I got back to my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. There was no music, no call to make, no one to report to. Just peace. The kind that doesn't announce itself with trumpets. The kind that sneaks in quietly when you finally stop bargaining with people who only show up when the lights are on. 1 week later, the deal closed. $10 million wired into the newly formed entity. My equity stake secured. My name now sat on a company people would whisper about in boardrooms I'd never have to walk into again. All the late nights, the sacrifices, the months of tightening bolts on a vision others called risky. It had all finally materialized. But the strangest part, the money didn't make me feel powerful. The silence did. Real silence. Not the kind that buzzes between two people pretending to be okay, but the kind that fills a room when nothing is expected of you. When you don't have to explain, defend, perform. After the final signatures were inked, I stepped out of the conference room into crisp afternoon light. Seattle's skyline shimmered like a reward. I didn't feel like celebrating, not in the loud, clinking glasses kind of way. I just wanted a moment to be still. I loosened my tie and walked down 4th Avenue until the buildings thinned out and the energy shifted. I didn't even know where I was going, just let my legs carry me past bookshops and bakeries and rows of people who didn't know my name. And that's when I saw her, Vanessa. She sat alone at a sidewalk cafe, back straight, fingers curled around a mug, no makeup, hair pulled into a loose knot, not glamorously disheveled, just real. Something about that startled me more than anything she'd ever said. She didn't notice me at first. Her gaze was unfocused, locked on the street beyond me. Her jaw was tight, and her eyes, once always scanning, always performing, just stared right at the corners. Quiet. I almost walked past, but something held me. I didn't approach, didn't wave, just watched from across the street, half hidden behind a lamppost. She wasn't talking to anyone. No phone in hand, no friends arriving, just her and whatever silence she'd finally earned. And I realized something. She didn't lose me at that party. She lost me long before, when love became negotiation, when warmth turned strategic, when she looked at me like a resource to manage instead of a man to stand beside. But in that moment, I didn't feel hate. I felt release. I turned and kept walking. No grand farewell, no parting line, just a soft smile. One she'd never see. Because dignity isn't loud. It doesn't show up in courtroom victories or dramatic exits. It shows up in the quiet decision to keep walking when the past looks up, hoping for another scene. I headed toward the pier. The wind picked up as I neared the water, carrying the salt and promise of autumn. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills more than just lungs. It fills space and peace. Because I didn't just win a deal, I reclaimed myself. And in the end, that's worth more than anything money could ever